2023 sure was a year, right? And instead of, focusing on our inevitable demise, let's talk about the last year with a little bit of positivity from the Locked On Coyotes show.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, your number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes. I'm your host, Robyn Leoni, alongside Matthew Jacobson. We want to wish every one of you guys a very Merry Christmas as we celebrate this wonderful holiday and this final week, Matthew, of 2023. We're going to take a little bit of a page of what we did last year. I know you weren't part of the show last year, but we did a little bit of a two-part retrospective of the entire year, taking a look at everything that went down for both the show and the Coyotes. Some of the big things that happened for both of us. I mean, obviously, a lot of it is tied because we are a Coyotes show. But hey, who's counting?
I don't want to count. It's too many years.
Oh God. Yeah, but we're gonna start with some of definitely the biggest stories here, and then we're gonna kind of just like go out from there. The everydayers are gonna really appreciate some of the content that we're gonna get to later in the show because it gets to the nitty gritty. It gets to the things that like I was saying, if you listen to every day, you'll know. If you don't listen every day, I mean, hey, you might learn something new.
Or, start listening every day. I like having my ego boost. I would love it if you listened every day.
Oh, absolutely. So let's start, Matthew, I guess, with the biggest, no-brainer thing we have to discuss on this one. No, I have to do it. I have to do it.
Are we talking about the no vote?
Yes, the no vote. I mean, we'll get to the actual vote in itself, but let's talk about the build up to it because there was so much going on. Like, the beginning of 2023, the Coyotes were going through, like, they easily passed the threshold to get to to get it on the ballot. And at the time, I think everyone was very optimistic. I think even leading up to the actual election, a lot of us were very optimistic. What was it? Yeah, like it seems in the case of this that Alex Morello or the Coyotes ownership group or front office has to do something completely boneheaded to lose the vote. That was our belief at the time.
Well, I mean, let's be honest here. It's not like that wasn't accurate.
Exactly. Well, in hindsight, here's the thing that we had to look at. Like, my thought process was the boneheaded is they had to do something absolutely stupid, like like killing a baby, kind of stupid.
Pick a puppy. Yeah. Robyn goes right to child murder. I go to kicking puppies. The characters on this show. They've gone downhill since season 2.
You know what I mean? I didn't,
but it's funner to point it out that way. It's a lot more fun to just make fun of it.
Little did I kind of really think about, Matthew, of the stupid thing that they end up doing was not putting enough money and not putting enough effort into the Yes campaign.
Oh my God. It's all stuff that I learned after the fact, and I'll just stick with the perspective before. I did not in any way, shape, or form think it was going to fail. My belief system was as soon as ASU endorsed it very early on, this is going to get done. Whatever ASU wants done in Tempe, it gets done because Tempe basically belongs to ASU. That's not even like a commentary on the politics. It's literally a commentary on ASU actually physically owns almost all of the buildings there.
Well, yeah, not only that is like ASU makes up like a quarter of Tempe's population. Like
And also their jobs there. Like, it's the largest employer in the city, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the largest in the Phoenix metro. It is massive.
Oh, so, yeah, absolutely.
I genuinely thought they couldn't screw it up. And then whenever the deal came out that they agreed, hey, ASU's men's and women's basketball are going to play at the TED, I thought there was no way in hell. And then the no campaign starts, and I don't know, Robyn, if it's partially because my Coyotes bias, if it's partially because I can smell an idiot, and I can smell out the bad arguments from a mile away. All right, I've spent the last decade of my life plus listening to idiots on the internet and making fun of them. All right. I 100% can sniff that from a mile away. I genuinely didn't think the population was as apathetic and the other half of the population was as easy to manipulate in Tempe as they ended up being. Just straight up. I did not expect that. I thought a lot more highly of Tempe residents. I didn't know. I didn't really know that doing it for a special election was probably the dumbest thing they could have done. But minus those stuff that we found out later, I'm like, there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell this isn't going to go through. And you have all the former mayors, except for I think all the former council members. You have all these big business leaders, all but one of the major unions. There was like, I don't know how this failed. I do know, but like, there's no way in hell it was going to fail. And then we're on this live stream, like the morning of, I'm working at the Cardinal Stadium, and I just get this pit in my stomach, and it doesn't go away. I end up recording that video, putting it on Twitter that, hey, no matter what happens, this team's not going anywhere. And then the mood started to kind of, it seemed like not as a result of me, but like just the mood as a whole that day was just kind of, uh-oh. And then we get closer, and it's a little more uh-oh. And then we're on that live stream, and I'm about to puke, and I can't handle it. And then we get the uh-oh.
Yeah, it really, really hit, right? You're just at some point, we're just like, oh my God, this is really going to happen, isn't it? And and you can see our reactions too, right? Like the thing is, like, as the main host of this show, I would, I tend to do a decent amount of the talking as I set up and facilitate the conversation. Me, you, we had Carl Pavlik on the show, who's, former co-host. We'll get to, some of the stuff like that later on too. But I was talking and I was like, yeah, we're nervous, we're excited. And I literally, as I hit the refresh button, I'm talking and I just stop. I'm just staring and I'm like, what just happened? And it became so dead silent that you could hear a pin drop on the live show, like, until Carl Pavlik goes out and says, it's like a car crash. All you have to do is watch.
Because I remember that it just went silent. And like, to me, I can't. I look at the show like the day after. I might have elaborated then. At this point, I forgot like the exact thoughts through my brain. But it was very much like not good. And then at some point, I was just angry, and it was pretty much like F this, F that. We're not done yet. Whatever else is like nothing is over. Like I went from what do you say to nah, I'm just gonna throw all this pure unadulterated rage at the screen.
I think a lot of people were going through the emotions and everything that kind of went going past that. What we're going to do is we're going to continue talking about that. And then, a lot of the other highlights that happened during that off season, or I could say highlights, lowlights, whatever it is, some of the major events that happened in the Arizona Coyotes and Locked On Coyotes course in 2023. It's our Locked On Coyotes 2023 year in review. We'll get to more right after this.
And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. unless it's the Cardinals, because they're not going to win. But if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get into the action. The app is so easy to use with a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
So let's continue those thoughts, Matthew, talking about that election, because I feel like that immediate, we talked about it, right? The immediate shock. Then we kind of talk, like, I think, and it's interesting too, like, I think it even goes beyond like fans. I think a lot of people who are just just heavily invested in this process just kind of all felt the same thing, right? Like, you saw me, right? Like, I'm pretty sure you pretty well remember how I was feeling. Like, you were seeing like my emotions. I went from that complete shock to devastation to apathy. I kind of skipped over the anger. I feel like because you took all the anger. And then like what, 48 hours later, we were just up and joking around.
You know, it's funny, and only depressed people will relate to me on this. It's only at your darkest moments when you are literally joking about jumping off the cliff when you're like, that's funny.
But that sure was a huge thing, and I definitely that definitely pinpoints just like the biggest thing that I think happened on this show. I think it's around that time in which Locked On Coyotes, I think, gained an extra 100 subscribers.
You're welcome. You needed a loudmouth.
Speaking of which, I feel like that's something I do have to talk about really briefly before we get to some of the other big things. That was it is another big thing for Locked On Coyotes. That around that same time as the election was the time when we saw a transition in co-hosts. Those that, again, the everydayers know that earlier in the early bits of the summer, Carl Pavlik, my former co-host, decided to leave the show for personal reasons. He said it was a little too much on him, and respected his decision. I after Carl giving me 2.5 years in the show, or 2 years in the show, 2 seasons. He gave me a solid 2 seasons in the show, and I really appreciated what he did. But the moment he left, I brought you on, and I felt like it's been a ride that for the first 6 months of having you on the show.
Look, all the show really needed was a loudmouth with no self-awareness and a massive ego the size of the logo behind me. But let's get back to the depressing stuff, the no vote. Like, our response to that was very much like, okay, what's next? And it kind of had to be. And I remember that first night I didn't sleep. It just kind of felt like my world was coming down. Like, I'm pretty sure I talked about it, but just in case not, I'll go ahead and throw it out here now. Not to the extent that I actually would jump off a bridge or anything, but I could not see my life without this team, because for so long this team has been so important to me. And from just personal aspects of, despite getting bullied for liking the team, despite not really having the greatest upbringing for the first portion of my life, despite this and that, it didn't matter. It was hockey night in Arizona coming up. Nothing mattered past that. That and me and my dad bonded a lot through hockey. In fact, he's the reason I even got into hockey in the first place. I met my wife as a result of being into hockey. I have a quote unquote career as a result of being mega into hockey. Like, I genuinely cannot see my life after the Coyotes. Like, it is a weird, it's kind of like ripping away someone's personality or their drive. It's weird.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because you and I come from completely different backgrounds when it comes to how we follow the Coyotes. Mm-hmm. My beginning was, sure, I kind of paid attention to them, here and there when I was, throughout my childhood. Like we've mentioned multiple times in the show, I was born and raised a San Jose Sharks fan, but when I moved to Arizona, I studied journalism at the University of Arizona. A couple years, I think my sophomore year, the Tucson Roadrunners came to town. Mm-hmm. It was their first season. I started covering that team, and I started to get to know all the players. I saw a lot of the things that happened over the course of my 7 years covering the Tucson Roadrunners. Saw some great rises of some players, like Lawson Krause and Connor Garland.
You can't forget Dylan Stromer.
Dylan Strome too. Capital. Yeah, Dylan Strome. Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say Dylan Strome, and was like, I want to bring him. I want to put
Coyotes fans' feelings on that. Stromer
exactly.
Did nothing wrong.
But I got a chance to. I got a chance to see so many players like that. Get their see their rises to the NHL, and it was fantastic. And I think a lot of that ended up giving me my soft spot for my extreme soft spot for the Coyotes, because I wanted these players to do so well in the NHL. I really did, because I was rooting for them in the AHL, because I was covering them in a professional entity, but you get to interview these players every day. You get to know them. So that's where I come from. And it's interesting that's why I was so emotionally invested too in this election. And that's why when it happened, I really felt it. I really did.
You know what? In hindsight, kind of hit a little bit. Well, let's be honest here. When Clayton Keller tweeted out the sad face.
I know, right? That I feel like that broke everyone's hearts.
Because he genuinely loves the market. And while he might be one of the most awkward dudes I've ever met in my life, he's definitely getting a lot more, camera friendly and a little more confident off the ice. But at least from the public perspective, I don't know the kid, but it really hits you when someone that doesn't talk that much is depressed or sad about something.
Yeah. And that's just one of the after effects of the Coyotes losing the election, right? In the I'd say in the 2 months, 3 months following it, following the no vote, there were so many other dominoes that, there's a huge domino effect of hearing everything else, and the similar thing of Clayton Keller. We're hearing, his agents might be getting a little impatient on trying to figure out. They want to hear some transparency. You're starting to hear, some players, go on a radio show on, in their home country and talk, and talk a little bit low about the arena situation in Arizona. And a lot of that just hurts to kind of think about that all that were domino effects following it. Right. And despite that, the Coyotes still, doubled down on their commitment to the Valley. They said, we're still committed here, and we're going to find a spot. They want to go ahead and look. It's all right, I think by draft time, that's a month, right? A month after the election, we've identified 6 spots. It's you've already started talking to 6 people, 6 entities, 6 locations within a month. That's impressive. And then they go down to 3. And now at the point when we're all listening to this, it's now 1. The exact location of that 1 is still yet to be officially revealed at the time of this recording. But those everydayers know Northeast Phoenix. Specifically,
these coordinates. They're not actually on screen.
No,
it'll be funny. You know what? You should definitely put the coordinates on screen of Mullet Bay or whatever it was that
Mullet Drive on Bermuda Island, whatever it was.
We should throw that out. That was a good joke, by the way. But
that was a fantastic.
This team, I've said it more recently, and this is kind of my opinion on it now. This is the last year in Arizona, because every time they have a last year in Arizona, they don't go anywhere. They have a 110% success rate of not leaving when it's their last year in Arizona. They're that friend that the party's been over for a week and they won't leave your house, but I don't mind.
Yeah. I love that though. It's the awkwardly just sticking around and you're kind of you're giving signals it's late, but at the same time you're just but I don't care. Leave whenever, but come on, dude.
It is a little late. You wanna get the hell out? Please.
All right. Well, what we're gonna do though is we're gonna We're going to keep going on this year-end review, look at a retrospective, all the things that happened in 2023 for the Arizona Coyotes and for Locked On Coyotes. We're going to continue on our thoughts right after a quick word from our sponsors on today's show. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. I know a lot of you guys probably had a frustrating experience buying tickets, whether it's realizing that ticket you bought is in a terrible spot and you didn't realize exactly where it was going to be. Or maybe you're surprised by these insane fees that all of a sudden doubled the cost of your ticket price. It's just super annoying to see stuff like that. And I know I get frustrated because that's what happens to me when I buy tickets. Game Time is the app that I now use only. It's the only app I use when buying tickets because it just fixes everything for me. They got last minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find buy tickets for all kinds of event in your area, views from the seats in your venue. One of my favorite things, we can actually see where you're going to sit before you purchase the ticket. They get the low price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. My full on favorite thing, all-in pricing. You can see the full price of the ticket after fees before you even hit purchase now. So you can know exactly what to expect, that you know that you're getting the best deal without hidden fees. You can buy tickets in just 2 taps. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NHL, $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So, Matthew, let's continue talking about the year in review for the Arizona Coyotes. I felt like we probably maybe got enough off our chest about the impact of that no vote.
But now I want to throw you on your toes. I'm going to take advantage of some information Robyn's told me off the show. I would like your perspective on the entire process, because for the last segment of the Christmas episode, let's get into the weeds a little bit. Then we'll I'm planning on some Cooley stuff for the second part, but let's see your perspective as a longtime host here of transitioning from the previous co-host. We love the previous co-host, Carl Pavlik on the show, by the way, to this charming gentleman right here, and how the show has changed for good, for bad, for mediocrity, however you want to describe it, Robyn. And
it's been a really interesting ride. You know, I loved having Carl as my co-host. I felt like he and I were always in the same, like a very similar wavelength. Although Carl also had a lot more of a pessimistic point of view, and I feel like it kind of rubbed off on me a little bit in the sense where like he's even more cynical in the sense of for the arena privileges. He was always just like, you know, I'm not gonna believe it until I get my ticket get scanned. I'm not even gonna believe it. You know, even 3 years after the arena is built, it's kind of like, you know, really just like has to really see, you know, get some proof before anything else, which I completely respect out of it. He has a whole different kind of viewpoint. You know, he's been covering the team with Five for Howling for a long time, and it was a transition. We switched to you, a very different personality, no doubt about it. You came in guns blazing, and I love it. I really do. Added a huge change of pace to the show. And then again, it's nothing against Carl at all. I felt like, you know, he did completely well for what I expected him to do as my first co-host after had doing the show solo to start off with. But I felt like when it comes to covering a team like the Coyotes, so very many times we need that flamboyant or that just super annoying, just like in your face, wow. or you're just like something that's going to completely just like annoy you in some ways, like in a good way.
Wow. Wow, you heard it here first, folks.
and I'll say this too. Those that have probably like paid attention to some of the things I've said over the course of the last few months. Maybe it's a lot of this. Most of the stuff has been said off the show. Is that that I brought that Matt is doing the exact thing that I brought him in for, and he was actually the first person I reached out to when Carl told me he was leaving. Like I was thinking, it's all right, I need to find a co-host, and it didn't even think in my head, Matthew, and to all the listeners out there, of anybody else. Like no one else came to my mind. Like you were the first within like a split second. I was thinking, I need someone who's a personality. I need someone who knows the team. I need someone who can help, bring in people and help grow the show. I couldn't think of anyone else except for you. So, and I felt like you would definitely accomplish that in your first 7 months here.
I accomplished some things, just a couple things. I mean, I know I was pretty much brought in to be the dance monkey over here because I jumped at the opportunity. So my wife and I were driving to get dinner, and it's like, hey, it's like a random DM. It was probably like a Tuesday night. Don't quote me on the exact night. I don't remember. And it was like, so you wanna be the new co-host Locked On? Yeah, why not? Yes. Because for whatever reason, the dude that likes to trash talk so much was the perfect replacement. And it's funny, and I'll give a little more peeks behind the scenes. I've gotten a couple talking tos for my for the stupid stuff I say every now and again.
It's funny too, because like, yeah, I know we're supposed, like a lot of us are supposed to remain professional, and that's kind of our job, right? We are a professional podcast. We are, local. We're considered local experts for you guys. All those, all you listeners out there, all you Coyotes fans. We're supposed to be a source for Coyotes news for you guys. But let's also be real. Like, I know a lot of you guys just don't want, basic news delivered in a kind of like basic package, right? It's just the Coyotes we're talking about. You need some personality to make it interesting.
And I sure do make things interesting. I sure do be doing that. But no, it was interesting to get the explanation for why I was brought in. It was interesting to get complimented by as many different entities as I was when I came in, because I'm like, I'm just doing the exact same shtick I've always done, give you my honest opinions while trying to be like, quote unquote, funny the entire time, and just be an absolute sarcastic jackwagon. And even though I don't curse on my personal channel, for whatever reason, it's been a lot harder to not do it on this show.
And for those that if anyone wonders why that's the case, it has to do with being the professional entity, right? It's just something that we have to keep to ourselves, to remind ourselves that, hey, we're professionals. We have to keep ourselves in the vlog form, like what Matthew does on his other show as AZ Sports Guy. Like, yeah, sure, that's fine. But with us, it's just like it's different. And I know that sure was a challenge for Matt coming into this side of the media game. But I mean, it's definitely kind of brought those worlds together, and I think it's really awesome for it.
Pretty much what Robyn is trying to tell you is she tried to put makeup on a pig, and it took a little while for the pig to stop getting crap all over the makeup. But now that process is finally done, and I just get to skirt my line, because like I know the word expert is definitely overused, and not to sound pretentious, but I do know like what I'm talking about. I spent an unhealthy amount of time around this team, and I have for a very long time. So it's like, I know what I'm talking about, but I also got to be like, hey, remember, you can meme, but like, don't do it as you normally would. Keep the makeup on.
Absolutely. But, like I said, Matthew, about 7.5 months in now, I guess, as we round out 2023, because it was early May when you came
I thought
in?
it was late April. Oh my God. The inevitable marching of time. It just keeps going and going.
7 to 8 months it's been. 7 to 8 months it's been, and it's been interesting. It sure has been, we've seen a lot, right? We've seen, I felt like it's interesting because you've definitely seen a lot in just the first 7-8 months as a co-host of the show. I feel like that's a lot for a new co-host to get thrown into. All the things that we've experienced, with the election being one of those, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's like being thrown into the deep end, boys. It is 100 throw into the deep, but also like to self-promo a little bit. I've been throwing the idea around for a little bit. I'm probably going to actually do it closer to Christmas. I need to start sharing information with people of the things you learn when you actually transition into being the professional entity, because there are so many things I didn't know that I wish I did. And the only way you're going to learn it is either doing what I do and just bumbling your way into a job, or making a lot of connections, which is a lot harder now that everyone's DMs are off by default. I wouldn't have half the connections I have if DMs worked the way they do now. When I was first trying to get into it.
It sure is a complete different kind of world out there. But all right, Coyotes fans, that's going to be it for part 1 of this 2-part episode, as we do a Locked On Coyotes year in review, taking a look at some of the highlights from the show, as well as the Arizona Coyotes in 2023. Today was a very arena-focused episode, talking about a lot of things that this team has done to kind of move forward in their arena process, including the loss in the election. But there's still a lot of things to look forward to. We still got a lot to get to in part 2. However, it's going to be a lot more focused on the state of the Arizona Coyotes rebuild, looking at their prospects that they picked up, and some of their free agent pickups over the last offseason. Logan Cooley joining the team as well. That's going to be on tomorrow's part 2 episode, coming out first thing in the morning, so you definitely will not want to miss that. If you like what you're hearing already, though, don't forget to leave a review, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube, SiriusXM, and ad-free on Amazon Music. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter, also known as X now, that's LO_Coyotes. I'm personally at Robyn_Leonio. My co-host, Matthew Jacobson, is at the AZ Sports Guy. Interact with us, ask a question you might have. We may answer right back in a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again to everyone for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys staying safe out there. Hope you guys staying healthy. Once again, hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas. And don't forget to howl on.